Good morning, grade 5. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the Spanish method of conquest of the Philippines. Right? So last time we already started with their Christianity or Roman Catholicism. We said that the Philippines is the only Christian country in the Asia today. Right? And also the Spanish missionaries, our ancestors' beliefs are, or the Spanish missionaries replaced our ancestors' belief and practices. So there are 5 different missionaries that came here in the Philippines. The first one is your Augustinians, right? So they accompanied Miguel Lopez de Legazpi when he arrived here in the Philippines. Okay, so specifically, they arrived here in 1565. Following the Augustinian missionaries, you have there the Franciscans, your Jesuits, your Dominicans, and Recollects, right? Aside from that, we learned the different things that we learned from the Spaniards or from the Christianization or the propagating of Christianity of the missionaries. You have there, we learned how to pray, rosary and novena, attend mass and worship, read the Bible, join religious processions, introduce the images of the saints, build churches, learn the Seven Sacraments, and celebrated feasts and fiestas for the patron saints. Alright? So here are the 7 sacraments. Okay, the 7 sacraments we said, number 1 is baptism, followed by marriage. 3rd is confirmation. 4th is confession. 5th is anointing of the sick. 6th, blessing of the dead. And last is the Holy Eucharist. Alright? So here are some of the feast that we celebrate every year. So you have here the Feast of the Black Nazarene. This is celebrated every January, right? Then you also have here the different symbolism that you can find inside the church. You have here Jesus Christ, the God of all Catholics. You have here the cross. Then you also have here the different statues that can be found inside the church. Aside from that, we also have here the different celebrations. One is we're going to be celebrating December 25th, which is your Christmas Day. Then also every year we have what you call your Holy Week. So those are some of the events that we celebrated regarding or related to Christianity. Alright? So now we're going to be continuing with the Reduccion System, right? Wherein we said last time that the missionaries are having a hard time traveling back and forth to different places, especially the houses of our ancestors are very far from each other's. That's the reason why they created what we call pueblos, right? So it's like a community wherein everything will be living near each other, wherein you can find there your church, your market, school, and different establishment that could help people to stay in that place, right? To live there permanently. Okay. So there. Aside from that, we also learned that the center or the capital of the pueblos are called cabecera, and the people live far from the pueblos is visita, and the people live farther from pueblos are called rancho. Alright. Next. Here. These are some examples. There. So remember that before, as I said, people or our ancestors doesn't have a permanent house because they need to transfer from one place to another in search for food. But when the missionaries built a community or pueblo like this where everything is available there, they will just leave home to go to work. Then after their job is done, they will go back to their houses. So they were able to build beautiful houses already, beautiful infrastructures and architecture, right? Okay, so now let's continue with the Patronato Real. Alright, so what do we mean by Patronato Real? So when we say Patronato Real, this is a supervision of the friars in the development of the indigenous people. Alright, so from the previous lesson, we learned to understand that the Spanish colonization of the Philippines began in 1565 until 1898. So the Spanish colonization of the Philippines lasted for 333 years. However, the colonization was formalized only in 1571 when Miguel Lopez de Legazpi arrived here in the Philippines. Alright? And he was appointed as the Governor General or the representative of the King of Spain. Alright? So, let's move to your Patronato Real or the patronage system. Okay? This was an agreement between the King of Spain and the Pope, which stated that the Spain would propagate Catholicism in all its colonies. Alright? And the Pope gave the king significant powers to select church leaders such as bishops for the colonies through the Patronato Real or patronage system. Okay? Since then, the church and the state had become inseparable. So meaning the church had a say to whatever decision the Governor General will make for the community. Alright? Catholic missionaries not only became very powerful heads of the church, but also as the heads of the state. At the same time, under the Patronato Real, the Governor General became the Vicereal patron who possessed authority in religious affairs. Right? There. So, lagi silang may say. So, they always, or the leaders should always ask the opinions of the head of the church. They cannot make a decision without informing our bishops, the archbishops, and so on. Okay. So the Spanish government with their expeditions brought along the different religious orders. Some of the religious orders that came to the islands were the Augustinians, Franciscans, the Jesuits, Dominicans, and the Recollects. They were spread in the different localities and they were tasked to lead spiritual activities. Right? So we know that the missionaries played an important role in the establishment of the Spanish government in the Philippines. Most of them became true to their their missions in propagating Catholicism in the country, and they were instrumental in the conversion of many of our indigenous population. There were also missionaries who defended the Filipinos against the abuse of some encomenderos and other government officials. Okay, so not all the leaders of the church before are bad. Okay, there are some missionaries who really fought for what they believe and what is just and right. All right. Aside from that, they established schools, hospitals, halls of justice, building roads, bridges, and water pumps. Remember, when they built the pueblos, building the pueblos comes with these different establishments. Okay. So many of them contributed to the establishments of plans for towns or pueblos. They helped the economy by teaching the natives new ways of farming. Right? Aside from the government officials, the missionaries were the only Spaniards in the countryside. Okay, so they every nooks and corners of the Philippines they were able to go to, except of course some parts of Mindanao. All right, so they tried to propagate Christianity in different or small provinces as well. Okay. So now, let's meet the three friars that serve as Governor General. Alright? So according to the Patronato Real agreement, the Archbishop had the highest rank in the church and was given extensive powers. His powers were not only limited to church affairs but also extended to political and economic affairs. There were even instances where he also held the position of the Governor General when vacated, like Archbishop Francisco de la Cuesta, Archbishop Manuel Rojo del Rio, and Archbishop Juan Arizidera. Alright, so they were the head of the church during the time. Okay, so aside from the Archbishop, we also have what you call the bishops. They were heads of the diocese that helped the Archbishop in governing the church. Each diocese was divided into parishes, which was headed by parish priests. Like here in Baguio, we have the Diocese of Baguio, and in Baguio there are different churches, right? And each church they will always have a parish priest assigned to that specific church. It was said that the parish priests were actually more powerful in their localities than the elected Gobernador Silio, right? So of course, these friars have they have roles that they need to do. Okay, so what are their main roles? Their main roles are the following. Okay, to teach religion. Second, put up schools and hospitals. Third, giving the sacraments to the people. Fourth, power to collect taxes. Fifth, create school curricula, oversee electoral processes, undertake charitable work, and authority to act on cases against those who broke rules of the church. Okay, so if you notice, not everything about it, not all the roles of the friars are related to church, like collecting taxes, school curriculum, electoral processes. Those tasks supposedly are given to the state or to the government, but instead it was given as a role of friars or the priests. Okay, many indigenous Filipino converted to Catholicism because of the friars' aggressiveness in teaching the doctrines of the church, but not all or not everything about the archbishop or the friars doing or task are appreciated by the Filipinos, right? Because of the extensive power given to them, some friars became abusive to their power, right? So they had people arrested for disobeying them. They had people exiled or sent to other place or exiled to some distant land and called filibusteros. Okay, when we say filibustero, this is the person who rebelled or revolted against the government. And these events led to some natives to return to their old beliefs and practices wherein they just chose to be pagans or enemies, diba? And so on. As a matter of fact, there were also religious uprisings that occurred. Okay? However, those uprisings were not successful, and some of the uprising or the famous uprising are led by these people. You have here Tamblot. You also have Hermano Pule and Francisco Dagohoy. If you know Francisco Dagohoy, it was his revolution that was the longest revolution of all time, or that was recorded. Diba? Now, let's try to look at the different reaction of the Filipinos to Christianity. The good effects naman. Right? So what did we learn? So the Filipinos' reaction to Christianity first, the children became more obedient to parents. People became more tolerant and forgiving of one another. Many were enlightened and followed God's commandments and belief of equality, and turned their back from polygamy and slavery. When we say polygamy, having many wives, right? However, Christianity might have been embraced by many, but the Muslim in Mindanao remained steadfast in their beliefs. So they did not change their religion at all. They followed what they believed in, which is Islam. Alright? They did not heed the missionaries' call to worship, but they insisted that there was only one God, which is Allah. Alright? So we remember that in Mindanao, or some parts of Mindanao are the only provinces or cities that was not conquered or colonized by the Spaniards. Okay? Because of course, they have a very good leader na din, their Sultan. Alright? So that is it for our lesson for Christianity, Reduccion, and Patronato Real. I'll see you tomorrow for an activity. Alright? So goodbye, grade 5, and thank you.